everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, the show in which I find out how horrible it is to be a man, as told to me by another man, I guess. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good afternoon, everybody, on this surprise Monday episode of TEDXcellence. I just wanted to note that prior to my scheduling this, it was my understanding there was not going to be a AAA stream over in the Sinatraverse today. And so I felt comfortable doing it because I felt like I'm not going to, accidentally or otherwise step on any toes. Not that I could step on any toes since, Sinatra's footprint is far, far larger than mine, but all the same, just for the sake of politeness and manners, that was not my intention. So if there was any ill will at my doing this at the same time, it was an accident. Please don't hurt me, Sinatra. Anyway, hope you're all doing well this afternoon. Why am I doing this today? Well, I was bored, as is the classic ranting monkey excuse, but also I was slightly inspired. An article came out in the last, I think, 24 or 48 hours or something from about Benedict Cumberbatch. This is as, sort of sideways an inspiration as I can get. So Sam Elliott, famed actor and rough and tumble cowboy type guy, he said some disparaging things about some movie, some quasi-Western movie that Benedict Cumberbatch was in, which, if you think about it for a second, is kind of an odd pairing, an American Western movie starring Benedict Cumberbatch. But either way, Sam Elliott took exception to the portrayal of cowboys in this movie that was, I guess, technically about toxic masculinity or something. And then Benedict Cumberbatch in this article interview said various things. As I read the interview, I thought to myself, this reads like a TEDx I would watch about toxic masculinity, because he said things like, we want to turn all your boys into feminists and, people who are used to the heteronormative, etc., toxic masculinity. And I was just like, oh gosh, someone has really drunk the Kool-Aid. And then I remembered, I think I have a TEDx in the wings that I was thinking about maybe doing at some point. Why not today? Sure, why not? And it's called The Straitjacket of Masculinity. Seems appropriate enough given the inspiration. The other interesting thing that I only found out after setting up this show, this TEDx has been deleted from their YouTube channel. This was just posted, I think, within the last few days, within the last week at worst. But now it's gone. I can't find it anywhere. But so I guess, in a way, as I said on Twitter earlier, this is an exclusive. So we'll take a look at that in a moment. But before then, who is joining me for this surprise broadcast of a TEDx? Mike R., hello. John Miller, hello. Mr. E, hello. As I understand it, you'll not be able to attend the Thursday night streams for a while, but we will miss you in spirit. But you're here now, so hello. Zeke Weiss, hello. Taco Cultist, hello. Swirl Blue, hello. Bridget, hello. Shane, hello. A TEDx on Tuesday, you spoil us. I would be spoiling you if it were Tuesday, but that's okay. Sad Kitty, hello. Faithless, hello. Brittany Holland, hello. JMK, hello. Spittlebuggies, hello. This is Kyle, hello. Alice Morgan, hello. Deco, hello. Johnny Hellcat, hello. Gulf City Johnny Blaze, hello. Attack Alpaca, hello. Hello. What a wonderful word. Hello. And today's bingo card is B. B as in boy. And you can find the links to the bingo cards in the description below. But with all of that as preamble, let's get right into it. This one clocks in at just over 15 minutes, so your standard TEDx length. I don't know about the girth, but we'll find out together. So a couple of seconds for sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed.
It's Christmas Day, the year 2000.
Okay, it's Christmas Day, the year 2000. You guys hear that all right? Let's see. Liesel7, hello. And let's see. If I didn't already say, Matt Barnes, hello. Merry Christmas as a Scanner Daffley. Heard it, says Attack Alpaca. All right. Well, then. Sad Kitty says, you're so nice, always saying hello to us subscribers. I say hello to everybody. I mean, for all I know, no one here is a subscriber, but I would say hello either way because I appreciate you attending. But even if you are a subscriber, well, a double hello to you. All right, so it's Christmas 2000, and
I'm with my favorite person in the world.
I have a dream t-shirt. I think I saw that before when I was making the thumbnail, but it just struck me now. Okay. Sorry, let me back up. I already forgot what he said.
It's Christmas Day, the year 2000.
Okay.
I'm with my favorite person in the world.
Yes.
My father.
Okay.
He's taken me to that old store that was once known as Debenhams.
Okay.
And he's taken me to get my early Christmas gift.
That must be some kind of British thing because I have no idea what that is.
A dictionary. Now, if you're wondering, a dictionary, I grew up in a Caribbean home. Education is key. So the first thing they want to do is to get that message in any single way that they can.
Okay, well, I agree. Education is important, and vocabulary is indeed also important. I pride myself on what little vocabulary I have, because it's always so great when I forget the words I want to use, because it makes me feel more like an idiot.
As a kid, there's only two things you care to do on Christmas Day.
Oh my gosh. Well, two things. And he's talking about his childhood. Let's go over to the bingo card real quick. We already have childhood or family anecdote, so circling that one. Circling free space because why not? And 2 is a list, so I'm circling a list. We already have 3 squares covered. Let's continue.
Eat myself into a food coma, and also open presents. I used to love opening my Lego because I was always building something for myself.
Okay. You mean you had a inclination towards mechanical things and construction type things? Oh, okay.
I woke up in the early hours of the morning on Christmas Day. My dad was having a heart attack.
Oh.
My mum performed CPR.
Oh, geez.
Next thing, all I remember was that the paramedics came and they took him out.
Oh, no.
There was a knock on the door.
Yeah.
2 policemen came and they gave me the news.
Oh.
I walked upstairs, told my mother, and I could see the pain etched in her eyes.
Oh, no.
He had died.
Oh, man.
On the way to the hospital now, and I'm being held in my mother's arms.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I held his hand and I said, "Mum, is Daddy coming back?" She said, "No, he's gone to heaven." And I'll never forget that. I called it the cold hand of injustice because my father was ripped from my life. I had no choice. He was the man that adored me, spoiled me, and cherished me. Everybody spoke about how good he was as a father. But I just carried on. Life went on as normal.
Okay. And, as much as I, try to make some entertainment out of TEDx's and things, when stories like this come up, there's no humor. I'm not being facetious here or anything. That is decidedly tragic, and my sympathies.
My mother went through around 6 months of severe depression, leaving her keys in the door, shoes on top of the car, and having panic attacks. And I'll never forget, when we were driving back from somewhere, she had a panic attack so bad that the police helped to drive us home. My mother informed me that if it was not for me, she would have ended her life.
Oh, jeez. All right. Well, yeah, I got nothing. That's terrible.
My mum came in the time when it was no blacks, no dogs, and no Irish. And she raised a single son in that time, coming from a country, Trinidad and Tobago, having to navigate the world. I couldn't have imagined how hard that would have been.
Yeah.
But most importantly, she persevered and carried on.
I'm glad.
That very dictionary that my father bought for me became a metaphor for something deeper in my life.
Okay.
It became something that made me realize I need to understand the world. I would study that dictionary. I would sit down and read it and understood all the different words that came out of it.
Okay.
And now I'm here today.
Oh, and my pause game is on point because that was just when the card came up on the PowerPoint here. The Straitjacket of Masculinity. Okay, well, a decidedly a sad and tragic opening story. And not to be insensitive or anything, but where are we going with that as the lead-in then?
So I've entitled this talk, The Straitjacket of Masculinity.
Yes.
For reasons you're going to see as we go on later.
Okay.
Now I have to give a really big shout out because on the far left is my mother. And on the lady with the gray hair is my Auntie Lorraine. And the lady that looks like she's stifled under my armpit, and it was a hot day, that was my Auntie Mel.
Okay.
And also the lady on the right was my Auntie Mackie.
Uh-huh.
These ladies promised to take care of me when my father died.
Right.
And they kept their promise and they kept their word.
Okay, good for them.
I'm really thankful I was able to be raised with a village of very strong and powerful women who taught me so much about myself, my existence, and most importantly, were great role models in my life.
Right. I again, not to tread into the territory of insensitivity, but did you have any male role models in your life growing up? Just curious.
Now, there's a study by psychologist Judith Stilton, and she says that boys and girls receive different messages about grief from when they're young.
Okay.
But she believes boys receive very different messages, 4 of those messages, about what it means to be a man and what masculinity means.
Are you going to tell us that boys are not allowed or instructed not to express their emotions? That they have to, man up, be a man, etc., and that is somehow poisonous or a trained instinct and not sort of a generalized instinct in males to be more in control of their emotions? Is that I'm just guessing where this is going now.
Now, the very first one is the stiff upper lip syndrome. That we must be strong and stoical in the face of difficulty. Regardless if we feel fear or pain, we must not complain.
Okay. Now, is that entirely nurture, or is there any nature in that reflex?
And I've been guilty of all of these.
It's nothing to be guilty of. That is not a guilt scenario. Okay, I'll try not to pause every 3 seconds here, but this was the thing. Self-wretchedness. I'm circling that one. Self-vilification or wretchedness. There's no guilt to be had in being in control of your emotions or trying to show strength in a time of crisis. That's nothing to apologize for. It's not bad, but okay.
Number 2, a man must be in control, self-reliant, and able to handle any situation without asking for help.
Okay, now I can't speak for him, obviously, but half of that is 100% wrong. Okay? There is a resistance to seeking help sometimes, perhaps. There is a self-determination to be self-reliant and independent, certainly. But I have never been taught that it is wrong to ask for help when you need it. That, in fact, if you do not know what to do or you are lost, there is no shame in trying to learn something by asking someone who might know the answer to a question. Okay? Now, that's how I was raised. I can't say how he was raised or anybody else. But I've heard that same sentiment from several other men in my life over the course of my lifetime. So I can't say that he's speaking for everybody. Although that also kind of means he's collectivizing his own demographic. So circling that one on the board as well. All right.
And that's that powerful loner stereotype.
Yeah, stereotype.
Number 3, a man must protect and keep safe those who are important to him and never trouble them with any of his troubles or concerns. Again,
there is a resistance to, because independence and self-reliance is instinctual in men most of the time, right? And not sharing your concerns or struggles with others is not an inherently masculine reflex. You know the meme, the joke, It's like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. And then you cut to a panel of someone's brain just completely going nuts and the swirlies and stars and explosions and things. Yeah, that is a human reflex. It is not a masculine reflex. So don't attribute that to one gender. It's a human experience.
Does that sound familiar to a lot of the men here in this room?
Yeah, you know what? Because we're all human. And as far as like a man must protect and keep safe, hey, beyond the fact that we have an instinct to, that sort of paternal reflex, society requires that of us, does it not? To be the provider, to be the protector. If our spouse decides to stay home with the kids, who has to be the earner? Who are the people that do most of the physical labor in this world? Who are the people that die on the job most in this world in dangerous professions? Who earns more money on average in this world? Who takes pride in their work more often than not, that they can provide for their family? That if their wife wants to stay home and raise the kids, that they are able to do so without too much of a concern, if they're able. Yeah. As though these are things that are just forced upon us. They are choices. They are things that we are expected to. And you know what? A lot of women appreciate that and look for that in a partner. I don't know what to tell you. It's not a one-way street. And it all is still a choice.
A man must overcome any challenge without fear.
Horse hockey. Okay. Now you might have. Okay. You know what I think of when I think of this dichotomy, this sort of straw man. I think of the Karate Kid, and not Cobra Kai, although that leads into it. But you've got the two different instructors, right? You got Mr. Miyagi, and you have the guy whose name I never can remember. You have the two different instructors. The guy who is 100% a sadist, has no room for anything like weakness or question or doubt. And, everything's got to be kill, kill, kill all the time. And then you've got Mr. Miyagi, who teaches Daniel how to kick some ass or some face, depending on the circumstances, but does so in a stoic, quiet, controlled way, not giving into anger, right? Different ways of how masculinity is expressed. There is an unhealthy way, yeah, but there's also a healthy way. And the unhealthy way oftentimes is so cartoonishly unhealthy that no one in their right mind, short of a psychopath, would actually behave that way. So what you're talking about here, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but what I am saying is that it is not the commonplace circumstance. I don't know. Maybe if you interacted with more men over the course of your growing up, you might realize that.
What's interesting is I'm deeply an introvert. It might not come across that way, but as I stand here on this stage, anxiety sits in my stomach. But there's a great saying that I always run with. My level of courage will always outweigh my level of fear. And that's how I've tried to live my life as best as I can.
Yeah, and that's called courage. That is called courage. It's about doing what you can despite the fears or concerns you have. For the years that I was struggling day after day after day with insane anxiety, and I emphasize the word insane, I would still get up every morning, get dressed, go to work, no matter what. I had to keep myself moving. I couldn't just give up in the face of all the noise in my brain all the time. And I've known many, many people who've done the same thing. And it does take courage, yes. And that is more commonplace than you seem to think. Only the most extreme person who has absolutely no idea how life works would say men have to operate without fear. No, that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. But that you are projecting that onto everyone that is not you as a problem they possess, that might be a problem for you.
Now, some statistics quite simply show that men are far more likely to go missing to be rough sleepers, and to depend on alcohol and drugs just because they want to get away from what's happening in their life or the things that they're going through, they will not speak about.
Is it possible, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there, is it possible that some of the things that men might be going through, especially these days, the things that are making them feel like they can't have a handle on their lives or might be leaning towards escapism and so on, is the constant drumbeat of people telling them that their instincts and their very nature as a man is inherently toxic? Is there any possibility that that might be a factor? Or are you going to do the reverse and say, oh, being a man itself is toxic and that's what causing them to do it? It's not the constant accusations. It's not the constant vilification. It's not the fear that anything a man says or does is going to be transmogrified by some worrywart into a thought crime or a real crime. Are you going to consider those possibilities, I wonder?
And what is a crazy statistic is in 2017, out of 6,000 suicides in the UK, 75% of those were men.
And that occurred because men are men, right? Is that the conclusion? Just as the nature of being a man leads to self-destruction. Okay.
Suicide is the single biggest killer of men under the age of 45 in the UK. Mm-hmm. And suicide in the UK is also 3 times more common amongst men than it is women. Since 1981, the suicide rates for women have halved, whereas for men, it's only gone down by 20%.
Oh, there's no correlation in those statistics, and not necessarily causation, but all the same, between the raising up of women as holy angelic beings and vilifying and demonizing men as inherently toxic. There's no, is there, if you could take those 2 graphs and lay them one on top of the other, would you see any kind of similarity, I wonder?
Men do not speak enough about their issues, and we don't speak enough about our problems.
Nobody wants to hear them half the time because they've been diminished. If I have a problem, why would I want to talk about it if it's just going to be someone telling me, well, that's because you're a toxic man? Do you understand how dismissed men are with their problems when they do say things? And not just from other men or something. Come on. Now,
the picture on the left, I was asked by a photographer to think about my father, and obviously tears come to my eyes whenever I think about him. And on the right is another picture I took for another shoot. There's a contrast for a deliberate reason to show that there's always 2 sides to most men. That also applies to everybody. We are different people under different circumstances. Men are not a brick. They're not a monolith. What? But people forget that.
No, people. What people? What people forget that? What people honestly think that men are blocks of stone? Have you ever interacted with another man in your life? What are you talking about?
The need to be strong, to not show anyone what you're going through. We only typically see one side, when at home, a lot of men are suffering.
Yeah. There are a lot of expectations on men, it's true. To be the protectors, to be the providers. And not just by society and not just by other men, but by women as well, by people and themselves. It's a point of pride. You ever have personal pride in something, accomplishing something, not having to rely on someone else, or learning enough that you can operate on your own? Why is that a bad thing? Right? And you've had anxiety, right? I mean, if you acknowledge you have anxiety, and I'm just going out on a limb here, then you must have had that rational part of your brain when you're going through anxiety telling yourself what you're freaking out about does not deserve this amount of energy. I mean, I have not met someone who has had to deal with anxiety who doesn't have that thought in their head at one point or another, where part of them knows there is no justification for feeling the way that they feel, and yet their body won't let them away from it. And so if I tried to describe to somebody, hey, I'm freaking out, and they go, why? I sent an email with a misspelling in it. What is supposed to happen after that? What do I expect to have happen? I can't tell my body to stop freaking out. Telling someone else that I'm freaking out over this just kind of underscores the fact that it's irrational. But of course it's irrational. I'm having an anxiety attack. What? Anyway.
Now, The Lion King is a great movie because very similar to my story, I felt like Simba had his father ripped away from him and he had no choice. He had to understand the world and figure things out all for himself.
Yeah.
In regards to the cards that are also on that.
What? Okay, for those of you at home listening to this, he's got a PowerPoint card up right now and has 3 images in it. It has someone holding playing cards. The middle image is, I'm not quite sure. It looks like a leprechaun meeting giants or something. I don't know. An old sort of wood carving painting or drawing. And then the third image is Simba trying to wake up Mufasa after he's not fallen off the cliff, but, being shoved off the cliff by Scar. Just for your reference.
I couldn't deal with the cards that I had been dealt. I had to do something very differently with it. I could choose to either be angry at the world and upset, or I could choose to overcome and not just be a victim.
Oh, so you mean defeat and overcome the obstacles in front of you and bypassing your fear? Oh, I remember hearing somewhere where that's an unhealthy way to operate. I wonder where I heard that before.
Now, therapy for myself awoke a sleeping giant of trauma within me.
Therapy awoke a sleeping giant of trauma. Oh boy.
I either came from therapy feeling exhausted from crying or feeling super happy from getting my emotions out. I had never worked my emotions truthfully because I never came from an environment that encouraged it, but that wasn't their fault. They came in a time where they just had to work and get on with things. And if it wasn't for my mum and all the other generations before me, we wouldn't have that blueprint and that foundation that we have today to be able to explore our emotions.
That's 100% nonsense. I mean, and the only reason I say that is because the way he is saying this, and I obviously I'm not a mind reader, but the way he is saying this, it's implying to me that if his father had still been around and had not passed away when he did, that he would somehow not have the ability to do any of this. That somehow his father's presence would have prevented him from finding his way. There's a couple extra thoughts that kind of leads me towards, but I'm going to keep my tongue for the time being. Thank you, Matt Barnes. I know I felt no fear when I asked my now wife on our first date, or when she told me we were having a baby, and definitely not when I became self-employed in time for the Great Recession. Yeah, no, men don't feel fear. No. They're not allowed to feel fear. In fact, I think after you're born and you're assigned male at birth, they actually reach into your brain and pull out the part that is the fear reflex, since men aren't allowed to feel fear. Yeah, so I'm glad to know that the surgery was successful, Matt Barnes, and that you have proceeded through life without any doubt, hesitation, or trepidation whatsoever. I'm happy to hear it. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. You're a good man. You're a good man.
And there's a great saying that my cousin once told me, that as children, we wear the sins of our parents.
Okay, well, what sins did your mother pass on to you?
So even if I wanted to be angry, and I was a very angry young man at once in my life, I can't do anything about it. That's who I am, but I can change where I'm going.
Okay, that little cutout of sound, that was the video. That wasn't me. I'm going to back up a little bit just to make sure we didn't miss anything.
In my life, I can't do anything about it. That's who I am, but I can change where I'm going. And that's what I decided to do.
Yes. Okay. Self-reflection, self-development. I don't like how I acted in that situation. I am going to work to change myself. I have a bad habit. I'm going to try to take on a better habit. Yeah. These are things that people do all the time. And I underline the word people because it is a human experience. Men do it all the time.
Now, the photo on the left is when I first started modeling.
Okay, for those of you listening at home, it is a picture of him taking a selfie, and as compared to his physique on the stage as he's speaking, he is relatively slight, let's say. But this is also looks like several years old, so.
As you can see, I looked probably emaciated. It looked like I didn't get any meals in me at all. But I was being encouraged, positive validation, affirmations. The shoots I was going to, I was always being told that I looked great. I had interest from agencies out in New York. I had interest from agencies all over the world. But I was unhealthy. I was exhausted. I wanted to sleep all the time. I would skip meals all the time just to maintain cheekbones and just so I could look good and to be a hanger. But that was, I can't begin to tell you how toxic that was.
Yeah, and you've never heard of anyone on either side of the gender aisle going through something similar. Please do not tell me, or please do not imply, that your process there is a wholly male reflex. Let's see. I'm going to go to the bingo card real quick just to cover and make sure I didn't miss anything. Anecdote that probably never happened. I can't say I've heard any anecdotes that were perfectly crafted or anything. Everything sounds legitimate so far. Systemic institutional. I'm actually surprised he hasn't. I don't think he's actually used the word like societal pressures or anything like that yet. So we'll wait and see. Weightless example. Not yet, at least not obviously so. Word salad. He was getting towards it there a minute ago, but not yet. Leaves out vital context. I'm going to wait, but if he continually brings up things that are not exclusively male experiences but classifies them as such, then I might circle that one. White supremacy, he hasn't brought up. I mean, he brought up race sort of in the story about his mother, but that was very brief, and that's not really a theme of the talk yet. I'll wait on that one. Privilege, no. Sales pitch for product or service, no. Not unless he's now marketing his modeling abilities or something. Plays victim, I'm leaning on it, but I'm going to wait and see if we have some more examples. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase, not yet. Wage gap, no. Patriarchy, no. Feminism, again, I'll wait in aggregate unless he says it directly, because a lot of what he's talking about are the talking points of feminism, toxic masculinity, and so on. Mind reading assumes motives. Yeah, circling that one. Attributing so many things to men without knowing what men he's talking about. Diversity, equity, inclusion, no. Marginalize, marginalization, no. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. I haven't heard any non sequiturs yet. Contradicts own point or argument. I mean, half and half. That might also qualify for the everything bad is a man thing and nothing bad can be done or happen to a woman. Maybe, we'll see. Benevolent condescension. Yeah. Again, sort of turning men into just willless and little monsters that can't control themselves. And microaggressions and conscious bias, No, he hasn't talked about any of that yet. So far I have circled self-vilification or wretchedness, collectivize his own demographic, a list, free space, mind reading assumes motives, childhood or family anecdote, and benevolent condescension. Oh, sorry, 1 second. That just popped up on my thing. Thank you, Tier Alexander, Prometheus Unchained. Expressing emotions aren't unmanly. What is unmanly is being ruled by them, losing sight of the goal because emotions. I cry, I smile, and get pissed. Yeah, it's not about not showing your emotions. It's about not letting yourself be carried away by your emotions. That is the more masculine reflex. It is both instinctual and can be nurtured. I'm not saying it's all one or not the other, but there's a difference between, as we said before, there's a difference between not having emotions or not being allowed to express emotions and being in control of your emotions. He even said it himself. He used the word stoic or stoicism. Stoicism's not about having no emotions. So anyway, thank you, Tyr. Moving on.
I'd come home and I'd sleep and I'd restart the process again.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it all for moments like that in the middle, for a snapshot in time, a video, a photo, whatever it might be. And now I'm really thankful I can look back at that to see how far that I've come. But the industry was no good for me at a time when I was still discovering who I was as a young man.
The industry in modeling is no good for lots of people who have low self-esteem issues. It doesn't matter your genitals. Please do not tell me that this was a uniquely male experience. People go through this all the time, whether they are trying to become professional models or not. Self-image issues? Really?
Or a young boy, one might say. I still had abs though, so I'll take that. You know what I mean? Top 2. Now, there's a great saying by Anne Frank that says, dead people receive more flowers because regret is greater than gratitude. And my podcast that I run is all about giving people their flowers.
Oh, the podcast I run. Uh-oh. Sales pitch for product or service.
In real life, and giving them credit for what they have done. And I found out...
Well, giving them credit for what they have done. Okay, well, how about on the reverse of that? How about not holding someone accountable necessarily for something they haven't done? What about not thinking of men that aren't you, obviously, because you're so much more enlightened? But how about not immediately thinking of men as being reflexively broken or flawed because they're not thinking the way you think? How about that?
Was in real life and giving them credit for what they have done. And I found out that my dad's dad, so my granddad, was actually was a Venezuelan immigrant.
Okay. And?
So I realized where my name came from, flowers.
I think I missed, what's the speaker's name? Sean Flores. Okay, yes. Flores means flowers. Yes. Okay, I'm curious to see where this little anecdote's going. Thank you, Keeverdam. Sorry I'm late. No need to apologize. Like I said, this is an ambush show. It's fine. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for your generosity as always. But okay, so your dad's dad came from Venezuela, and his last name was Flores, or Flowers. And
so I want to take this time to say a really big shout out to a friend that has transformed my life.
Wait. Oh, okay, I must have missed something. I obviously have missed something here. I'm backing up. I'm not going to pause until we get back to that point, because your grandfather what?
Great saying by Anne Frank that says, dead people receive more flowers because regret is greater than gratitude.
Dead people receive more flowers because regret is greater than gratitude. I don't know. I think I've given more flowers to the women I've been romantically attached to than I have leaving at gravestones. But I mean, maybe that's just me. I don't know.
And my podcast that I run is all about giving people their flowers in real life and giving them credit for what they have done.
Okay.
And I found out that my dad's dad, so my granddad, was actually was a Venezuelan immigrant. So I realized where my name came from, flowers.
Okay, I'm almost inclined to circle that as a non sequitur, because you knew what your last name was before you found out about the origins of your grandfather, right? And that Flores means flowers isn't a Venezuelan thing exclusively. So, okay, I'm gonna put that in a little feather in my cap for the time being, and maybe come back to it, because I don't understand how that has anything to do with anything.
So I want to take this time to say a really big shout out to a friend that has transformed my life. And I don't say it enough, but in my darkest times,
yes,
you've really been there for me a lot, Malcolm.
Well, a man? But how? Or is he enlightened like you are? You've had to rely on a man at times for support? What? Again, I'm halfway, not trying to be disrespectful, but after the tirade we were just given for the last 10 minutes in this talk, it's surprising to me that his go-to support system outside of his family is a man. And
I'm really thankful for all the things that you have taught me, not only as a best friend, but you've been a father figure to me in so many different ways, from us doing cooking together, from you teaching me how to be a man. And you show me there's another side to me.
Why do you keep putting your hand to your mouth? I can't, I mean, in any other circumstance, this is nothing that I would be asking about or pointing out or otherwise, because I can understand the reflex simply as a person. But given the rhetoric we've been given here, why are you attempting to control your emotions? You know, putting your hand up to your mouth is sort of that subconscious reflex of saying, I'm trying to prevent myself from saying something or uttering something or making a noise. Why are you doing that? Isn't that toxically masculine?
That I hated to accept. You constantly reminded me that it's okay to be emotional, that it's okay to be fearless in who I am as a person.
Yes, which is such a rare thing. No one else on the planet, all other men, lack any kind of sentiment in their lives, have never had it expressed to them by other men, or don't possess it themselves. Now, only you and your friend possess these powers. Again, I have a lot of sympathy for the fact that this guy had such tragedy early on in his life. But, you know, having to set that aside, that doesn't give him license to then vilify everybody else, or effectively say that being a man in and of itself is a problem that has to be solved. It does not grok, as they say.
I don't say it all enough, but from the moment we met at Police Cadets, you transformed my life. And when I was suicidal and you were there, you were unflinching and you were you were unflinching, you were unquestioning your support and your love for me.
Okay, I'm going to mark that up to a Freudian slip, but otherwise, yeah, unsupported. Yeah, okay. He's emotional. He's tripping over his words. It's fine. I understand, because I am a person too.
It reminded me just how powerful it was to have a friend like that around. And I believe everybody in the world deserves a friend like you. So I want to say, stand up and take your flowers as I give them to you.
If he's standing up in the crowd, I can't see him, but then maybe they'll cut to him. I don't know.
Thank you.
I'm assuming he's standing up. Oh, there he, okay. Kind of in the corner, you can kind of see the movement. Okay. Well, anyway, while I'm pausing for a second, let me pin to the top of the chat box for those of you watching live, or at least watching the screen. Up at the top of the chat box, thank you, Keeverdam, for the links for the 2 GoFundMes currently running for our friend Shady Grin and his friends and his kitten and their families and friends. If you take a look at those, if you would, and if you have a couple of bucks to spare, it'd be appreciated if you throw them their way. Let's see. Thank you, Matt Barnes. Again, Scribe, does this card have contradicts on point? It does. And have I already circled that one yet? No, I haven't. We're not too far from this being done, so I'm gonna wait a little bit. Make sure I'm on solid footing before I start circling stuff, because there's still more to come, I'm assuming.
Now, as I said, growing up without a father, I was always searching for a father figure everywhere in the world, and I was lucky enough to have it in a friend. As I said, we cooked, we've done so many different things together. We've had experiences that I've cherished. We've had dark times, we've had great times, but he showed me what it means to be a wholesome man.
Oh, what it means to be a wholesome man. Oh, okay. Well, what distinguishes a... I mean, I suppose you could come to the most extremes first and foremost. You know, here's a wholesome man, and then here's a guy who beats his wife or something. Yeah, right. Okay. Well, what constitutes a wholesome man? I guess. What are the attributes of a wholesome man? Tell me the rare qualities that you and your friend possess that all the men who kill themselves don't.
He would play R&B music, and it's always about love. I got sick and tired of it. But now, give me a little bit of soul music, a little bit of jazz, a little bit of R&B. And I'm thankful, as I said, for the experiences you have taught me.
Okay, I get it. You're thankful. Uh-huh.
So I've got to say a huge thank you.
Which, you know, most men don't know how to and cannot be thankful, I guess.
Now, there's something that elephants and humans have in common.
Oh, a riddle. Long memories? I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know.
When there's no male elephants in a herd, the younger male elephants act out because they have no one to show them how to behave in the world.
Uh-huh, that is possible. You know, that also happens with girls. I mean, lack of parental involvement, lack of discipline and structure. Yeah, that can't. Not in everyone. It's not a guarantee, but that can also happen in girls. Did you know that? Have you thought about that? If this talk was referring to people in general or trying to deal with grief as people and things like that, I'd probably not have a whole lot to say. But that's not what we're talking about, is it?
And that's quite interesting for a lot of young boys. We seek external validation through money, women, cars, fame.
And girls don't seek validation through money, men, cars, and fame. What? You cannot be serious right now. Come on, man. Not to pull a Joe Biden, but come on, man.
And even achievements, because when you think about it, a man is born with no intrinsic value.
Excuse me?
His value is attributed to his social success and the money that he makes.
Excuse me?
And when you're always chasing achievements, it's very easy to look out into the world and to feel great. But if you're not dealing with what is within, you will not go any further.
Okay, obviously, I can only speak for myself, but in turn, speak for yourself. Men don't have any intrinsic value when they're born? The money that they make. Yeah. I've known a whole lot of really, really, really nice and good men who don't have a lot of money. who help people, who are strong, who raise good families, and don't concern themselves with wealth of that kind. And they've been some of the most powerful and meaningful men in my life. My grandfather, flew in World War II, ended up working for NASA, raised a family, went through the deaths of 2 different children over the course of his life because of health problems. Raised the most wonderful woman I have ever known, my mother, and he was never rich. And he was a giant in my life. I didn't value him on the basis of his money. I didn't even understand the breadth of his personal accomplishments until I was perhaps a teenager and maybe just before he died. What are you talking about? Who instilled in you that perspective? And let's go back to that whole drug use and suicide rate. Can you imagine if there was, I don't know, a large portion of people in society who thought the way that you think people are? What? Okay, well, let me back up. Okay, because maybe I'm overreacting. It's not impossible. If he's about to say that's not how things should be, well, I would counter that that's not how things are. But I don't know where he's getting this perspective from.
And I've called it the elephant in the room. There's a great African proverb that I think greatly epitomizes this.
Okay.
Those who shy away from addressing the elephant in the room are doomed to carry the weight of it.
What is the elephant in the room? A lack of parental supervision? Lack of healthy role models? What? Okay, you're going to need to explain, because obviously I've lost the plot here.
And that's what I did. I carried the weight. I chased all the achievements. I've, been a special constable. I did policing. I've modeled. I've acted. I've done so much.
And that's all bad? I mean, if you were trying to fill a hole in yourself with things to show off and to get attention for, yeah, again, not a male experience exclusively. And by the way, I know you're saying it, but you have to remind yourself, you're talking about you, and you do not represent all men.
But there was still something in my room that I was not dealing with.
Uh-huh.
I want to give a big shout out to some of these organizations that are doing great work with young men.
Okay, well, if not for his own podcast, then he's now promoting organizations and things. So sales pitch for product or service, circle in that one.
Activity, West Side Young Leaders, Dope Black Dads, and Manhood Academy. They're teaching young boys and giving them positive role models to model themselves off.
After this talk, if there are any kind of positive role models as you're describing yourself, I have to wonder.
In the media, typically when we see Black success and Black excellence, it's become a narrative that is saturated with simply and only rappers and musicians.
Well, not to lean too hard on the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, but Martin Luther King Jr., Barack Obama, and any number of sports figures, Hank Aaron, or actors, or other politicians, Colin Powell. I mean, no, you're wrong. But maybe I'm just unique. I don't know.
We need more. We need positive outlooks.
Well, we've got plenty. What are you talking about? And a rapper can't be a positive outlook? What's wrong with rappers? I mean, as a category, or are you going to talk about individuals? What? And
there's a great saying from Lauryn Hill.
Okay.
That says, how are you going to win when you're not right within?
Oh, wow. How profound. I've never heard anything like that before from anyone.
And that's exactly what I think is so important. We have to look in ourselves. Now, that's my dad there. And I could choose to allow his death to be an anchor or a sail.
I honestly cannot tell which one you're taking it as after this talk. Because I have, I mean, as I was indicating before, it sounds as though, at least by implication, that if your father had had a role in your life beyond the point of his having passed away, that somehow none of the personal development that you've experienced would have happened. So, which is it? It's hard for me to say.
The anchor weighing me down or the sail to push me forward. He didn't die so that I died with him. He died and he lives through me. And I think that is so important on my journey to becoming the man that I wanted to be.
Well, okay. And in any other circumstance, I wouldn't ask this question. But since he's made it a point, I have to ask, what kind of man was your father? Did your father fall into any of these categories that you've cited as inherently unhealthy as far as behaviors or attitudes? I mean, was he a man like you are a man now in the way that he carried himself? Was anything different? If he was not how you are now, how do you look upon him and the quality of him as a man? I mean, I don't know, and I don't imagine we're going to find out. But again, given the fact that you've brought him up over and over again, and that his absence has led to all of this, as though his presence would not have in some way, I can't help but be curious.
And there's my mum and my dad.
Okay.
And I think what has been so powerful is they taught me a lot in life. Taught me so much. There's stories, journeys that I could never really imagine. When you run from pain, pain will always chase you. And I'm a fast runner, but it caught up with me in the end, no matter what I did.
Yes. You know, I'm glad that you have discovered these things for yourself, if it has helped you and made you into a person that you appreciate more over time, as most of us hopefully are. It is not a revelation to a lot of us. Most of us, anybody older than you, and even people younger than you, have already made these discoveries because we too have lived through life, including other men.
But what today is all about is creating tomorrow's solutions.
Okay.
And when I speak about that, I want people to recognize and remember that there's a lot of men who are struggling with the inner standing of oneself.
There are a lot of people who are... Thank you, Ms. Jiggletrunk. The irony of the I Have a Dream shirt with the modern need for self-categorization against a society that is the utter fulfillment of King's vision. Yeah. What was King trying to say? You know, content of character, not color of skin, right? And you can carry that same sentiment to gender. You know, what does being a man say about a person's character? Nothing. What does being a woman say about a person's character? Nothing. Now, sure, there are stereotypes. You can make reflexive judgments or, you know, unconscious biases and so on, but it's all just fantasy unless or until you actually get to know the individual. You know, keep that, you know, you can't help sometimes the knee-jerk reactions you have, but always keep in the back of your head, until you know someone, you don't know someone. But here we are, like you say, it's kind of it's almost like a almost disrespectful dismissal of the very notion behind the phrase on his shirt. The value of judging people on the basis of their merits as individuals and not dismissing or vilifying or deifying people on the basis of things that say nothing about who they are.
So when you're trying to understand them, it's going to be too hard. They're not going to be able to do it. Take the time, show compassion and understanding, and show that you really care.
Okay, I got to back up a little bit because I paused him right in the middle of a statement, and I want to make sure I get all the context. So pardon me. I make sure I don't want to miss anything.
Journeys that I could never really imagine. When you run from pain, pain will always chase you. And I'm a fast runner, but it caught up with me in the end, no matter what I did. But what today is all about is creating tomorrow's solutions. And when I speak about that, I want people to recognize and remember that there's a lot of men who are struggling with the inner standing of oneself. So when you're trying to understand them, it's going to be too hard. They're not going to be able to do it. Take the time, show compassion.
Wait, it's going to be... Why is it going to be too hard? Why are they not going to be able to do it? What? Because what men are inherently disabled? They lack the ability to express themselves emotionally or otherwise because they're men? I mean, I don't know what other conclusion to make given everything that has occurred prior to this, but that's the only thing I can come to is what you're saying. Is that it?
And understanding and show that you really care. The best conversations to have with a man.
Okay, that cut out a sound, I swear to God, not me, that's the original. And that cut out a sound is when he was saying the word man, for those of you listening at home. So when that, I'm going to back up a little bit. When that cutout happens, he was saying the word man.
Take the time, show compassion and understanding and show that you really care. The best conversations to have with a man typically are when that he's having an activity or when he feels ready to speak.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Yeah, wow, it's sounds very textbook, doesn't it? Sounds like, now that we understand the male animal, the best time to approach them is about midday when hunger has struck. Really? How could you infantilize an entire gender any more than that? Really? I mean, you really have to wait for the right moment to talk to a man. They are incapable of really having a conversation unless they're distracted with an activity. You got to catch them off guard. Otherwise, they don't know what to do.
So tomorrow's solutions are typically within us men and the communities that we have around us. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, oh boy. Yeah, what a roller coaster that was. Yeah, that was an awkward one because, like I say, his origin story, for lack of a better phrase, there's no, there's nothing to criticize. Personal tragedy. It's going to mark you. It's going to affect you your entire life, like that, losing a parent. But beyond that, how you decide to deal with it, how you decide to treat yourself and others as a result of that, that's all on you, tragedy or otherwise. So, anyway. Let's go on to the bingo card and see where we're at and see where we might go. So here's where we are right now. I'm going to go over it one more time myself, see if I missed anything that I should be circling. And then after that, I will take arguments for squares to be circled. So first and foremost, anecdote that probably never happened. I have no reason to doubt any of the stories he told. Nothing came across as overly self-serving or too perfect, or, my 5-year-old just asked me what antidisciplinarianism was, something like that. Systemic institutional. It was hinted at in the statistics and everything else that society and expectations, etc. He didn't. I don't think he said society explicitly, but I mean, it was definitely implied there that there is a systemic or sort of collective understanding or expectation of men. Also, when he says, when men are born, they have no intrinsic value, this, that, yeah. So I'll take that. Weightless example. What? I mean, well, actually, I want to say I'm going to make that the non sequitur because that really was an example. The non sequitur, I make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. I'll get to that momentarily. But weightless example. Weightless example. I don't know if there was an example that was 100% irrelevant to his talk. I'm not sure how many examples he actually gave. So, word salad. Nothing sounded like just, a wall of words without meaning. I understood what he was saying. I just took exception to a lot of it. Leaves out vital context. Well, I mean, again, as I said at the end there, the key figure in this entire talk was his father. And aside from the circumstances of his passing away, and I'm trying to remember, I don't think he talked much about his father's demeanor or his behavior or anything else. And I would have liked to have known that to see in contrast with his other descriptions of what is or is not healthy masculinity or wholesome masculinity. So I'm going to circle that. If you guys remember some details he gave about his father that I'm just forgetting in the course of this, let me know. White supremacy. Yeah. Aside from talking about the signs that his mother had to deal with, what was it? No blacks, no dogs, no Irish or whatever. That really wasn't a feature of the talk, and I don't know if that's enough. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be corrected or argued against, but I don't know if that qualifies. Privilege, no. Plays victim, yeah. Yeah, that somehow just being a man in society and so on and so forth is, yeah. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. No. Wage gap. Well, he talked about the value of men on the basis of how much money they have. So I guess in a way, yeah, the valuation of men on the basis of money or earnings. It's a bit of a stretch, but it's not a bingo square, so I don't feel too uncomfortable about that. Patriarchy. I mean, that's a tough one because a talk about men does not necessarily mean we're talking about, quote unquote, the patriarchy. So I'm not quite on that one. Now, feminism. Okay, between toxic masculinity and men are told not to have any emotions and, this, that, and the other, there were about 5 or 6 common talking points that are promoted by feminism in order to diminish, vilify, and or, make inherently flawed men as a result of such rhetoric. And so, consequently, I am forced to conclude.
Bingo.
What? Of course!
Our first bingo, maybe not the last. We will see. Moving on, diversity, equity, and inclusion. No, that never really came up. Marginalization. No. I mean, maybe abstractly in some way, but no. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. The origins of his grandfather. That had nothing to do with anything, quite literally. His last name translated as flowers. What does that have to do with where your grandfather came from? I didn't understand what that had to do with anything, so I'm going to make that the non sequitur of the talk. Contradicts own point or argument. His efforts on stage to control his emotions. His efforts on stage to stifle his tears or any choking up he was doing. Now, on the one hand, I could say, well, he's trying to do a talk. He's trying to, be coherent for his audience and everything. But what better time to practice what he's preaching than when he's feeling strong emotions? I don't know. It just, given everything else he was telling us earlier, it just seemed way out of place to then go right back behind it. And lastly, microaggressions, unconscious bias. Unconscious bias. Well, I mean, he talked a lot about stereotypes of men and expectations of men and, the lack of intrinsic value. But it is a bingo square, and he didn't say it explicitly. So, yeah, I'll take arguments, but I'm going to leave that one uncircled. So there's where we are, everyone. If you have any arguments for squares to be circled, please put them in the chat now. I will scroll up a bit in case there's any others. And please be sure to tag me in your comments so I can see it more clearly. Let's see. Spittlebuggies. What was that at the last part? I comprehend none of that gobbledygook, etc. I mean, he was wrapping up really quick. I think he saw the clock and kind of pushed through to the end real fast. I don't know that I want to chalk that up to word salad. Just maybe an awkward conclusion, but I understood effectively what he was saying. But again, if there's a specific example you want to give or anybody else, I'm fine with that. Zeke Weiss, it took me so long to understand how to be a man. It must be society's fault rather than a tragedy impacting me, one that isn't as common compared to others. Kind of the vibes I'm getting. Yeah, again, and like so many TEDx talks, I can't discount what the person is saying as it applies to them. But the problem becomes when they start projecting what they assume is the experience or they assume is the position of others simply on the basis that they share an element of their makeup. Because I had this experience, this is how all men must act. Or because I had this experience, this is how all teachers must act, whatever it is. So as happens often, the TEDx stage is more a one-person play of their own internal monologue and not necessarily an accurate commentary on the world around them. Mr. Tickletrunk, Scribelight, he did touch on those points a hell of a lot. An aggregate unconscious bias. Yeah, you know what? I will agree. I mean, a lot of it had to do with assumptions and stereotypes about men's behavior and that. And even if he wasn't talking about unconscious bias himself, he was obviously broadcasting his own. So in that sense...
Oh, won't somebody please?
Bingo. B-I-N-G-O.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, so we got our second bingo. Bingo number 2. All right, so accepted. Let's see. Nathaniel Taylor, Scribelight, word salad. The part towards the end was just a filler of words that didn't mean anything until about the last 2 or 3 sentences. Okay, I'm going to put this one up for a vote because I'm not in 100% disagreement, but I don't know if like one little bit constitutes word salad. Maybe, I don't know. Actually, you know what? Let me just for my I already took it off. Ah, dang, I can't play it back right now. Okay, so everybody, I need a vote. All right, on Nathaniel Taylor's proposition that word salad is qualified by the last few bits of the talk. If you agree with that, put a 1 in the chat. If you disagree, put a 2. And by their comparison of numbers, I will make the decision. Mr. Tickletrunk abstains his vote. Okay. Bobby Lee Jordan says, 2 extra streams in a week. You okay, bud? Only just now logging in. Yeah, well, the explanation for why I'm doing this today is boredom and inspiration from an article I read. And that's the truncated version. The rest you'll have to listen to the top again. Let's see. Mr. Tickletrunk says 2. Scanner Daffley says 1. Tier Alexander's abstaining. Let's see. Well, I don't see a lot of response to this one. Or maybe people aren't at their keyboards or something. I don't know. I'll move on for the minute. If you have other votes, put them up there. What are we voting for? Okay, so there was a section right at the end of the talk, right before he wrapped up, that is being cited as word salad. Now, if in my saying that you don't remember thinking that what he was saying was confusing or gobbledygook, then I think you should probably vote 2, as in no, it was not word salad. But if you agree that it was word salad, put a 1 in the chat. So 1 if you agree, 2 if you don't. And if you don't agree, please put a 2 in the chat because I need to see the contrast of votes. So we got a couple of 1s so far. Resolute Germ doesn't care, just votes 1. Okay. Kieverdam, I'm currently bonding shells. I didn't know shells could be held in custody. That was a joke. That was a joke. I swear. That okay. All right. Well, overall, I am seeing people say 1 than I'm seeing say 2. So I will accede to the crowd, such as it is, because I'm weak like that. I'm weak as a man, you see, and consequently,
ooh, that's a bingo,
Right?
Yeah!
so we have a triple bingo. There you go, everyone. I think I'm going to call it there because, again, this was an ambush, TEDXcellence. Sorry for those of you who are I'm not sorry for you having showed up late, but that there wasn't a whole lot of lead-up time because it was spur of the moment. Rest assured, there will be a regular TEDXcellence this week, Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, with, at least as scheduled right now, special guest, Sinatra Says. And hopefully everything still lines up by Thursday to make that true. If not, there'll still be a TEDx, but it might just be me. So we'll find out then. But everyone, those of you that were here for it, and even those of you that weren't, thank you so much for joining me and watching. I appreciate it. You guys are the greatest audience in the entire known Moonosphere. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the GoFundMes that are pinned at the top of the chat box, thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. A couple extra notes. I just wrapped up on doing a podcast quasi interview yesterday with someone who's watched the show before and found out about me through Kurt Metzger. I don't know what their screen name is, but the podcast has his name on it. So Brian, I will say for the time being. And as soon as that podcast is posted, I will put out a link on Twitter and advertise it elsewise. And along with that, as I don't do it that often, and I'm told I should do it more often, there's a link in the description to my merchandise store where you can find t-shirts and mugs. There's a TEDXcellence mug I just designed recently that maybe you like. There's also a new shirt that's just like the entire Scribe-Light portrait on both sides of a shirt. Well, you know, the classic painting on the back because you see the character's back, and then the Scribe-Light on the front and that kind of thing. Yeah. So there you go. I'm advertising for product or service. I will circle my own circle. How's about that? Just to make it more legitimate for myself. There. Okay. Everyone, again, thank you for joining me. I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.